Mother asked, "What was it?" I said, "If I were to write it again, I don't think I would write it like that." "Is that such a big deal to say?" she asked. "Yes, because I was rejecting what exists, Mother." Mother gazed at you in the darkness and said, "Why do you hide those words? You have to live free, saying whatever you feel," and pulled her hand from your grasp and rubbed your back. "When you were a child, she used to wash your face the same way, with her big soothing hands. 'You tell such good stories,' she said." "Me?" Mother nodded. "Yes, I liked it." "She liked my story." You were moved. You knew that what you said wasn't all that good. It was just that you were talking to her differently after your experience at the Bradley Library. After you'd left home for the city, you'd always talk to her as if you were angry at her. You talked back to her saying, "What do you know, Mother?" "Why would you do that as a mother?" you'd rebuke. "Why do you want to know?" you retorted coldly. After you figured out that Mother had no longer had the power to scold you, if she asked, "Why are you going there?" you replied curtly, "Because I have to," even when you had to take a plane because your book was being published in another country, or you had to go abroad for a seminar. When she asked, "Why are you going there?" you stiffly replied, "Because I have business to take care of." Mother told you to stop taking planes. If there is an accident, 200 people die at once. "It's because I have work to do," you'd say. If Mother asked, "Why do you have so much work?" you replied sullenly, "Yes, all right, Mother." It was difficult to talk to her about your life, which had nothing to do with hers. But when you talked about feeling lost seeing the Braille version of your book and the mounting panic you felt standing in front of 400 blind people, she listened as intently as if her headache had gone away. "When was the last time you told Mother about something that had happened to you?" At a certain point, the conversations between you and Mother became simplified. Even that was not done face to face, but by telephone. Your words had to do with whether she ate, whether she was healthy, how Father was, that she should be careful not to catch cold, that you were sending money. Mother talked about how she made kimchi and sent some, that she had strange dreams, that she sent rice or fermented bean paste, that she'd brewed Mother word to send you, and that you shouldn't turn off your phone because the messenger would call before delivering all these packages. Carrying a paper bag that held your Braille books, you said goodbye to the people at the Braille library. You still had 2 hours to kill before your return flight. You remembered standing at the dais and looking out the window, averting your gaze from those blind eyes and seeing the harbor dotted with boats. You thought, well, since there's a harbor, there's got to be a fish market. You took a cab and asked to be taken there. You like to visit the market whenever you have time to spare in a place you've never been. Even on a weekday, the fish market was bustling. Outside the market, you saw two people cutting apart a fish that was as big as a car. You asked if it was tuna since it was so large, but the vendor said it was an ocean sunfish. You were reminded of a character in a book whose title you couldn't remember. She was from a seaside town and she could go to the huge aquarium in the city every time she had a problem to talk to the ocean sunfish swimming inside. She would complain that her mother took all her life savings and went off with a younger man to a different city, but then at the end would say, "But I miss my mother. You are the only one I can tell this to, sunfish." You wondered if that was the same fish. Thinking it was a unique name for a fish, you asked, "Really? It's called an ocean sunfish?" And the vendor said, "We also call it mola mola." As soon as you heard the words mola mola, the tension you had been feeling inside the library dissip, dis, dissipated. Why did you think of mother as you wandered among the heaps of seafood, which cost a third of what they did in Seoul? Live octopus with heads bigger than a human's, fresh abalone, scabbard fish, mackerel, and crab. Was it the ocean sunfish that made you think of mother for the first time at a fish market? That made you recall preparing skate at home by the well next to mother? You could see mother's frozen hands peeling the brownish mucus stuck to the flesh. You stopped at a store that had a boiled octopus as big as a child's torso hanging from the ceiling and bought a live octopus for 15,000 won. You bought some abalone. Though they were farmed raised, they had been fed different kinds of seaweed. When you said you were going to Seoul, the vendor offered to put your purchase in an ice chest for an extra 2,000 won. As you walked out of the fish market, you realized you still had a lot of time left before your flight. Holding the Braille volumes in one hand and the ice chest in the other, you hopped into another cab and told the driver that you wanted to go to the beach. It took only 3 minutes to get there. The November beach was empty except for two couples. The beach was big. As you walked towards the water, you almost fell twice. You sat down on the fine sand and stared at the sea. After a while, you turned around to look at the shops and apartment buildings facing the ocean across the road. People who lived here could jump into the ocean on a hot night, then go home and take a shower. You absent-mindedly took out a Braille volume from the paper bag and opened it. The white dots on the pages sparkled in the sunlight. Tracing your finger along the indecipherable Braille in the sun, you wondered who had taught you to read. It was your second eldest brother, the two of you lying on your stomachs on the porch of the old house, mother sitting next to you. Your brother, a gentle soul, caused the least trouble among your siblings. Unable to disobey mother's orders to teach you how to read his expression board, he directed you to write numbers and vowels and consonants over and over. You try to write with your dominant left hand. Every time your brother rapped the back of your hand with a bamboo ruler, he was doing mother's bidding. Even though it was more natural for you to favor your left hand and foot, mother told you that there would be many things to cry about in life if you use your left hand. When you use your left hand to scoop rice in the kitchen, mother wrenched the scoop out of your hand and put it in your right hand. If you try to use your left hand anyway, she would grab the scoop and slap your left hand, saying, "Why won't you listen to me?" Your left hand became swollen. Even so, when your brother wasn't watching, you quickly switched the pencil to your left hand and drew two circles, one on top of the other, for the 8. Then you switched the pencil back to your right. Your brother, who knew that you had stuck together two circles as soon as he saw your 8, told you to put your palms out and slap them with the ruler. As you were learning how to read, mother looked over your crouched form while she mended socks or peeled garlic. When you learn to write your name and mother's name and read books hesitantly before enrolling in school, your mother's face bloomed like a mint flower. That face overlapped with the braille you couldn't read. You stood up and hurried back to the road without bothering to brush the sand off your clothes. You decided against taking the plane to Seoul and instead took a taxi to Daejeon and got on a train to Cheongup, thinking all the while that you hadn't seen mother's face in almost 2 seasons. You remember a classroom from long ago. It was a day when the 60 or so kids filled out an application for middle school. If you didn't write an application that day, you were not going to middle school. You were one of the kids not working on an application. You didn't completely understand what it meant that you would not be going on to middle school. Instead, you were feeling guilty. The night before, a mother had yelled at father, who was ill in bed. She had shouted at him, "We don't have anything, so how is that girl going to survive in this world if we don't send her to school?" Father got up and left the house, and mother lifted the squat table from the floor and threw it into the yard in frustration. What's the point of having a household when you can't even send your kids to school? I might as well break it all. You wished she would calm down. You didn't mind not going to school. Mother wasn't appeased by throwing the table. She opened and banged shut the door of the cellar and yanked all the laundry off the line, crumpled it, and threw it on the ground. Then she came to you, cowering by the well, and took the towel off her head and brought it to your nose. She ordered, "Blow your nose." She could smell the intense stink of sweat on mother's towel. You didn't want to blow your nose, especially not into that smelly towel. But mother kept telling you to blow your nose as hard as you could. When you hesitated, she said that way you wouldn't cry. You were probably standing there looking at mother with an expression bordering on tears. Telling you to blow your nose was her way of saying, "Don't cry." Unable to resist her, you blew your nose, and your snot and the smell of sweat mingled in the towel. Mother came to school the next day wearing the same towel. After she spoke with your teacher came to you and handed you an application form. You raised your head and looked outside the classroom as you wrote your name on the form, and you saw mother watching you from the hall. When your eyes met, she looked the towel off her head and waved it, smiling brightly. Around the time the fee for middle school was due, the gold ring that used to be on mother's left middle finger, her sole piece of jewelry, disappeared from her hand. Only the groove on the finger, etched by many years of wearing the band, was left behind. Headaches attacked mother's body constantly. During that visit to your childhood home, you woke up thirsty in the middle of night and saw your books looming over you in the dark. You hadn't known what to do with all of your books when you prepared to go to Japan for a year with Yubin on his sabbatical. You sent most of the books that had stayed with you for years, to your parents' house. As soon as mother received your books, she emptied out a room and displayed them there. After that, she never found the opportunity to take them back with you. When you visited your parents' house, you used that room to change your clothes or to store your bags, and if you stayed, that was where mother would place your blankets and sleeping mat. After you got a drink of water and returned to your room, you wondered how mother was sleeping, and you carefully pushed her door open. It looked as if she wasn't there. "Mother," you called. No answer. You fumbled with the switch on the wall and turned on the light. Mother wasn't there. You turned on the light in the living room and opened the bathroom door, but she wasn't there either. "Mother, mother," you called as you pushed the front door open and stepped into the yard. The early morning wind burrowed into your clothes. You turned on the light in the yard and glanced quickly at the wooden platform in the shed. Mother was lying there. You ran down the steps to the yard and approached her. She was frowning, as she had done earlier, asleep, hand on her head. She was barefoot, and her toes were curled under, perhaps from the cold. The simple dinner and the talk you had shared while you strolled around the house together shattered. It was an early morning in November. You brought out a blanket and covered mother with it. You brought socks and put them on her feet, and you sat next to her until she woke up. Thinking of ways of earn money other than from farming, mother bought a wooden mat mold into the shed. She would take the whole wheat and she harvested from the fields and crush it and mix it with water and put it in the mold and make malt. When the malt fermented, the entire house smelled of it. Nobody liked the smell, but Mother said it was the smell of money. There was a house in the village where they made tofu, and when she brought them the fermented malt, they sold it to the brewery and gave the money to the mother. Mother gave to Mother. Mother put that money in a white bowl, stacked 6 or 7 bowls on top of it, and placed it on top of the cabinets. The bowl was Mother's bank. She put all her money up there. When you brought home the invoice for tuition, she took money from the bowl, counted it out, and put it in your hand. Later in the morning, when you again open your eyes, you discover that you were lying on the platform in the shed. Where was Mother? She wasn't there, but you could hear chopping from the kitchen. You got up and went in. Mother was about to slice a large white radish on the chopping block. The way she held the knife looked precarious. It wasn't the way she used to thinly slice radish to make coleslaw expertly without looking down. Mother's hand holding the knife was unstable, and the knife kept slipping off the radish onto the chopping block. It seemed she would cut her thumb up. Mother, wait! You grabbed the knife from her hand. I'll do it, Mother. You moved to the chopping block. Mother paused but then stepped aside. The steel basket in the sink held a languid dead octopus. There was a stainless steel steamer on the gas range. She was going to put a layer of radish on the bottom of the steamer and steam the octopus. You were about to ask, aren't you supposed to parboil the octopus, not steam it? But you didn't. Mother arranged slices of radish on the bottom of the steamer and adjusted a stainless steel shelf inside. She put the whole octopus in and placed the lid on top. This way, the way she usually cooked seafood. Mother wasn't used to fish. Mother wasn't used to fish. She didn't even call fish by their proper names. To Mother, mackerel and pike was scabbled fish were all just fish, but she differentiated between types of beans: kidney beans, soybeans, white beans, black beans. When Mother had fish in her kitchen, she never made sashimi or broiled or braised it, but always salted and steamed it. Even for mackerel or scabbled fish, she made a soy-based sauce with the red pepper flakes, garlic and pepper, and steamed it on a plate over rice that was cooking. Mother never put sashimi in her mouth. When she saw people eating raw fish, she looked at them with a distasteful expression that said, "What are they doing?" Mother, who had steamed skate from the time she was 17 years old, wanted to steam octopus too. Soon the kitchen was filled with the smell of radish and octopus. As you watched Mother steaming octopus in the kitchen, you thought of skate. People from Mother's region always put skate on their ancestral right table. Mother's year was structured around the ancestral rites she held, once in spring and twice each in summer and winter. Mother had to sit next to a well and clean 7 skates each year. If one counted New Year's and full moon harvest, usually the skate mother bought was as big as a cauldron lid. When your mother went to the market and bought a red skate and dropped it next to the well, this meant that an ancestral rite was approaching. It was hard work to clean skate for the winter ancestral rites in weather that instantly turned water into ice. Your hands were small and mother's were thickened from labor. When mother made a slit with a knife in the skin of the skate with her red frozen hands, your young fingers pulled the membranes off. It would have been easier if they came off in one piece, but they would fall off in sections. Mother would make another slit in the fish, and the whole process would be repeated. It was a typical winter scene. You and your mother squatting by the well, which was covered in thin ice, skinning the skate. The cleaning of the skate repeated itself each year, as if someone were rewinding film. One winter, mother gazed at your frozen hands as you sat across from her and declared, "Who cares if we don't skin it?" Stopped what she was doing and confidently cut the fish into chunks. It was the first time that the ancestral rice table had seen a skate with its skin on. Father asked, "What's wrong with this skate?" Mother replied, "It's the same skate, just not skinned." Father's sister grumbled, "You have to put care into food for the ancestral rites." "Then you try peeling it," Mother retorted. That year, whenever something bad happened, someone brought up the unpeeled skate. When the persimmon tree didn't bear fruit, when one of your brothers, who was playing a stick throwing game, got poked in the eye by a flying stick, when father was hospitalized, when cousin fought, father's sister grumbled that it was because mother hadn't bothered to skin the skate for the ancestral rites. Mother placed the steamed octopus on the chopping block and tried to slice it, but the knife kept slipping, just as if had when she was slicing the radish. "I'll do it, Mother." You took her knife again, sliced the hot radish scented octopus, dipped a piece in red pepper and vinegar sauce, and held it onto Mother. This was what she'd always done for you. Each time you tried to take it in mid-air with your own chopsticks, but Mother would say, "If you eat it with your chopsticks, it doesn't taste as good. Just open your mouth." Now Mother tried to take it with her own chopsticks, and you said, "If you do that, it won't taste as good. Just open your mouth." You pushed the piece of octopus into her mouth. You tried one too. The octopus was warm and squishy and soft. You wanted octopus for breakfast, but you and Mother ate it with your fingers standing in the kitchen. As you chewed on the octopus, you watched Mother's hand as she tried to pick up a piece and dropped it. You put a piece in her mouth for her. Soon she gave up trying to eat the octopus herself and waited for you to plop it in her mouth. Her hand seemed unfocused. Eating the octopus, you said, "Mother, let's go to Seoul today." Your mother replied, "Let's go up into the mountains." "The mountains?" "Yes, the mountains. Is there a hiking trail from here? I've made one myself. Let's go to Seoul and go to the hospital there. Later. Later when? When your niece's entrance exam is over. She was referring to Hyo Hyungcheol's daughter. You can go to the hospital with me instead of with Hyungcheol. I'm fine. It'll be fine. I'm going to the Chinese doctor for it. I'm getting physical therapy too because they said something's wrong with my neck. You couldn't persuade mother. She kept insisting that she would go later. Then she asked you what the world's smallest country was. The smallest country? You stared at mother, a stranger asking you a random question. What is the smallest country in the world? Mother asked you to get rosary beads for her if you ever went to that country. Rosary beads? Prayer beads made of rosewood. She looked at you listlessly. Do you need prayer beads? No, I just want prayer beads from that country. Mother stopped and let out a deep sigh. If you ever go there, get me a set. You were quiet because you can go anywhere. Your conversation with mother stopped there. She didn't say another word in the kitchen. After the breakfast of steamed octopus, you and your mother left the house. You went across a few patties at the back of the village and stepped onto a trail in the hills. Even though it wasn't a path people used, the trail was clear. The thick layers of oak leaves on the ground cushioned your feet. Sometimes the branches that reached into the trail hit your face. Mother, who was ahead of you, pushed the branches back for you. She let go of them after you walked through. A bird flew away. Do you come here often? Yes. With who? Nobody. There's nobody who would come with me. Mother walked this path by herself. You really couldn't say you knew Mother. It was a dark path for anyone to walk alone. At some parts, the bamboos were so dense that you couldn't see the sky. Why do you walk here by yourself? I came here once after your aunt died, and I kept coming back. After a while, Mother stopped on top of a hill. When you came up next to her and looked where she was looking, you shouted, "Oh, this path!" It was a path you had completely forgotten about, the shortcut to your mother's house, which you used to take when you were young, even after they built the big road that passed through the village. People often used this mountain trail. It was the path you had taken one day when your grandmother was busy preparing for her ancestral rites, a live chicken trailing behind you on a rope. You had dropped the rope and lost the chicken. Though you had looked for it everywhere, you weren't able to find it. Where had that chicken gone? Had the trail changed so much? You used to be able to walk this path with your eyes closed, but now, if it weren't for the hill, you wouldn't have known it was the same path. Mother stood there, staring at the place where her mother's house once stood. Nobody lived there anymore. The people from that village, which once must have numbered 50 households, had all moved away. A few empty houses hadn't been torn down, but it was a village that people had stopped coming to. So mother had come here by herself to look down at the empty village she was born in. You wrapped your arm around her waist and suggested again that she came to Seoul with you. Mother didn't reply and instead brought up the dog. You had been curious when you first noticed that the dog wasn't in the kennel, but you hadn't had a chance to ask. A year before, when you'd gone home in the summer, there was a Jindo tied next to the shed. It was sweltering, and the chain was so short that it seemed that the panting dog, unable to get out the sun, would fall over dead at any moment. You told mother to untie the dog. Mother said that if she did, people would be too scared to walk by. How could she chain a dog up like that, especially in the countryside? Because of the dog, you argued with mother as soon as you arrived, not even bothering to say hello. Why do you keep the dog tied up? Let it roam. But mother insisted. Nobody, not even in the country, lets their dog run around. Everyone ties their dog on a chain. If you don't, it'll get lost. You shout back, then you have to get a longer chain. If you tie it up with such a short chain, how is a dog supposed to survive in this heat? Do you treat it like that just because it can't speak up for itself? Mother said that wasn't the only chain. Mother said that was the only chain in the house. It was the one she had used for the previous dog. Then you can go buy one. Even though you'd come home for the first time in a long while, you drove back to town before setting foot in the house and brought back a chain so long that the dog could wander down the side yard. That's when you realized the kennel was small. You went out again, saying you were going to get another kennel. But mother stopped you, insisting that there was a carpenter in a neighboring village whom she could ask to build her a new kennel. Your mother couldn't fathom paying for a house for an animal. There are pieces of wood everywhere, and all you need to do is hammer it here and there, and you want to pay money for that? You must have money rotting in your pockets. Later, when you left for the city, you gave her two 10,000 won check and got her to promise that she would build that dog a big kennel. Mother promised she would. Back in Seoul, you called a few times to make sure that mother had the kennel built. Though she could have lied, each time she said, I'm going to, I'll do it soon. The fourth time you called and heard the same answer, your anger overflowed. I gave you the money for it and everything. Country people are terrible. Don't you feel bad for the dog? How is it supposed to live in that tiny space, especially in this heat? There's faces inside, and the poor thing has stepped all over it. There's feces inside, and the poor thing has stepped all over it, and you don't even clean it up. How can such a big dog live in such a small contraption? Otherwise, let him roam free in the yard. Don't feel bad for the dog? The phone went silent. You started to regret saying that country people were terrible. Mother's angry voice came shooting across the line. You care only about the dog and not your own mother? Do you think your mother is the kind of person who would abuse a dog? Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to raise it my way. Mother hung up first. You were the one who always hung up first. You would say, Mother, I'll call you back. And then you didn't. You didn't have time to sit and listen to everything your mother had to say. But this time your mother had hung up on you. It was the first time Mother had been so angry with you since you left home. Once you moved out, Mother always said, I'm sorry. She confessed that she'd sent you to live with Hyungchul because she couldn't take care of you well enough. Mother would try as hard as she could to lengthen the call when you phoned, but even though she hung up first, you were more disappointed in the way she was keeping the dog. You were puzzled. How had Mother become that person? She used to look after all the animals in the house. She was the kind of person who would come to Seoul for an extended stay and 3 days later insisted on going home to feed the dog. How could she be so clueless now? You were annoyed at your mother for becoming so insensitive. A few days later, Mother called. You weren't like this before, but you've become cold. If your mother hangs up like that, you're supposed to call her back. How could you dig in your heels? It wasn't that you had been stubborn. You hadn't had time to think about it for that long. You would remember how Mother had hung up, angry, and think, I should give her a call, but because of one thing or another, you would push calling her to the end of your list. Are all educated people like that? Mother snapped and hung up. Around full moon harvest, you went to your parents' house and saw that there was a big kennel next to the shed. On the floor of the kennel was a soft layer of hay. Standing next to you on the hill, your mother started talking. In October, while I was washing rice at the sink to make breakfast, someone kept tapping me on the back. When I looked around, nobody was there. It was like that for 3 whole days. I felt something tapping me, as if they were calling me, but nobody was there when I looked. It must have been the fourth day. As soon as I woke up, I went to the bathroom and the dog was lying in front of the toilet. You got angry with me last year, saying that I was abusing the dog, but the dog had been wandering around the railroad tracks covered with mange. I felt bad for him, so I brought him home and tied him up and gave him food. If you don't tie him up, you don't know where he'll go or whether someone's going to catch him and eat him. That day, he didn't move. At first, I thought he was sleeping. He didn't move even when I nudged him. He was dead. He'd been eating well and wagging his tail the day before, but he was dead, and he looked peaceful. I don't know how he got loose from the chain. At first, he was all bones. He'd fattened up, and his coat was getting shiny. And he was so smart. He would catch moles. Mother paused to sigh. They say that if you take in a person, he will betray you, and if you take in a dog, he will pay you back. I think the dog went in my place. This time you sighed. Last spring I donated money to a passing monk, and he said that this year one member in your family would be gone. When I heard that, I was anxious. For an entire year I thought of that. I think death came to fetch me, but because I was washing rice to cook for myself every time, he took the dog instead. Mother, what are you talking about? How can you believe that when you go to church? You thought of the empty kennel next to the shed and the chain on the ground. You put an arm around Mother's waist. I dug a deep grave in the yard and buried him. Your mother always did tell imaginative stories. On the night of an ancestral rite, father's sister and other aunts would come over with bowls of rice. It was when food was scarce, so they would all contribute. After the ancestral rites, your mother would fill the relatives' bowls with food for them to take home. During the rites, the bowls of rice sat in a row nearby. Afterwards, Mother said that birds had flown in and perched on the rice, then left. If you didn't believe her, she'd say, I saw them. There were 6 birds. The birds are our ancestors who came to eat. The others laughed, but you thought you could see their footprints in the white rice. Once, Mother went to the fields in the early morning, bringing along a snack for later, but someone was there already, bent over and pulling weeds. When she asked who he was, he said he was passing by and stopped to pull weeds because there were so many. Mother and the stranger weeded together. She was grateful, so she shared the snack she had brought. They talked about this and that. They talked about this and that and weeded the field and went their separate ways when it got dark. When she came back from the field and told father's sister that she had weeded with the stranger, father's sister stiffened and asked what he looked like. That used to be the owner of that field. He died of sunstroke one day while he was weeding that field. You asked, Mother, weren't you scared to be in the field with a dead person all day? But your mother replied nonchalantly, I wasn't scared. If I'd had to weed that field all by myself, it would have taken 2 or 3 days, so I'm just grateful he helped me. After your visit, you noticed how your mother's headaches seemed to be eating away at her. She quickly lost her outgoing personality and vivacity and started to lie down more often. Your mother couldn't even concentrate on card games with 101 bets, which were among the few joys in her life, and her senses became dull. One day, after she put a pot of rags on the gas range to bleach them, your mother crumpled onto the floor of the kitchen and couldn't get back up. All the water evaporated, the rags began to burn, and the kitchen was enveloped in smoke. But your mother couldn't snap out of it. The house might have gone up in flames if a neighbor hadn't come in to see what was going on. After catching a glimpse of the column of smoke in the air, your sister, who had 3 kids, once asked you a question about your mother and her constant headaches. Do you think mother liked being in the kitchen? Her voice was low, serious. Why do you ask? Somehow I don't think she did. Your sister, who was a pharmacist, opened her pharmacy while pregnant with her first child. Your sister in law babysat for the infant, but she lived far from the pharmacy. The baby lived with your sister in law for a while. Your sister, who'd always loved children, ran the pharmacy even though she could see her baby only once a week. It was wrenching to watch her part with her baby. There couldn't have been a farewell as sorrowful as that. But your sister seemed to have more trouble with the situation than the baby. While he adapted to his life away from his mother fairly well, she drove him back to your sister in law's at the end of each weekend, crying, her tears drenching her hands as they gripped the steering wheel on the way home. And on Monday, she stood in her pharmacy with her eyes swollen from weeping. It was so bad that you would say, "Do you really need to go to such a length to run a pharmacy?" When your sister's husband was to go to the United States for 2 years of training, your sister closed the pharmacy, which she had continued to run even after she had her second child. She said she thought living in America would be a good experience for the kids. And you thought, yes, please take it easy and take some time off. She had never once taken time off after she got married. She had her third baby in the States and then returned. Now she had to cook for the family of 5. Your sister said that once they ate 200 croaker fish in 1 month. 200 in 1 month? Did you only eat croakers? You asked, and she said they had. This was before their things had arrived from America, and she wasn't used to the new house yet, and the newborn was still breastfeeding, so there wasn't time to go to the market. Her mother-in-law sent a chest of baby croakers, salted and gently dried, and they ate the whole thing in 10 days. Your sister laughed and said, I would make beans broth soup and broil a couple of fish, then make courgette soup and fish. When she asked her mother in law where she could get more, she found out that she could order them online. Because they had eaten through the fish through the first batch so quickly, she ordered two. When the croakers came, I washed them and counted. There were 200. I was washing the fish so that I could wrap 4 or 5 of them in plastic and put them in the freezer to make them easier to cook. And all of a sudden, I wanted to fling them all on the floor. Your sister said calmly, and I thought of Mother. I wondered, how did Mother feel all those years in that old-fashioned kitchen, cooking for our big family? Remember how much we ate? We had 2 small tables filled with food. Remember how big our rice pot was? And she had to pack all of our lunches, including the side dishes she made with whatever she could get in the countryside. How did Mother get through it every day? Since Father was the eldest, there was always a relative or two staying with us. I don't think Mother could have liked being in the kitchen at all. You were caught off guard. You had never thought of Mother as separate from the kitchen. Mother was the kitchen and the kitchen was the mother. You never wondered, did Mother like being in the kitchen?